Eliza Morgan and Tessa Greer were once inseparable, best friends since childhood, bonded by secrets, laughter, and loyalty. But when Damian Clark moved to town, their unbreakable friendship turned into a silent war. What began as a love triangle ended in betrayal, obsession, and murder. One woman was buried in the woods, and the other stood trial for her death. In a town where everyone thought they knew them, no one saw the darkness coming to in the quiet coastal town of Woodpine, where life moved slowly and everyone knew each other's story. Eliza Morgan and Tessa Greer had been the kind of friends people admired. They were rarely seen apart, from elementary school projects to late-night talks during college breaks. Their bond ran deep, woven through shared heartbreaks, childhood secrets, and small victories that only the two of them ever celebrated. Where Eliza was calm, introspective, and gentle, Tessa was vibrant, spontaneous, and loud in all the ways Eliza was not. Their differences didn't create distance. Instead, they balanced each other, like opposite ends of the same thread, tightly pulled but never broken. After finishing school, they both returned to Woodpine, believing their roots had more to offer than the chaos of big city life. Eliza worked at the local animal clinic, caring for wounded pets and volunteering during community drives. Tessa, ever the entrepreneur, opened a small boutique that quickly became the go-to spot for trendy outfits. In gossip, people adored them, together and individually. They were considered pillars of their generation, young women who had stayed loyal to their hometown, chasing dreams without forgetting their beginnings. But behind their flawless appearances and tightly curated social media smiles, there was a rivalry that neither of them acknowledged out loud. Tessa often lived in the spotlight, effortlessly attracting attention, while Eliza remained a quiet shadow in the background. Friends said it was a perfect balance, but not everything visible on the outside reflected the inner truth. For years, Eliza had swallowed small slights and subtle dismissals. Tessa, knowingly or not, often dominated their friendship. Her decisions became shared decisions. Her opinions turned into facts. Eliza rarely disagreed, and when she did, her voice went unheard. Everything changed the summer Damian Clark arrived in Woodpine. A tall, confident man with a polished presence, he had come to oversee a real estate development project that promised to modernize parts of the town. Damian was different from the usual crowd. He had the smooth ease of someone used to attention, but didn't crave it. His interest in the local art scene, his spontaneous nature, and his soft-spoken charm drew people in. Within weeks, he became a familiar face at community gatherings, charity events, and small-town dinners. Both Eliza and Tessa noticed him instantly. At first, it was harmless curiosity, quiet glances, small comments, subtle questions. They didn't talk about it, at least not directly, but the tension between them shifted. Tessa, with her usual confidence, began to maneuver herself into Damian's orbit, inviting him to events, dropping by his office under flimsy excuses, laughing a little louder when he was nearby. Eliza watched in silence, her heart sinking. She tried to tell herself it was nothing, that Tessa's charm didn't mean connection. But deep down, she knew the pattern. Tessa always got there first, when it became clear Damian was interested. In Tessa, the unspoken boundary between the two women cracked. Eliza pulled away, skipping their usual brunches, replying late to texts, and offering cold smiles during brief encounters. Tessa didn't seem to mind. In fact, she seemed to thrive. She posted photos with Damian, casually tagging Eliza as if trying to include her while knowing exactly how much it would sting. For Eliza, the betrayal wasn't just romantic. It felt like another chapter in a long story of being second. This time, though, something shifted inside her. She didn't cry or lash out. She simply grew quiet. observant, calculated. And while the town still saw two best friends living beautiful lives, the bond had already begun to rot from the inside. Neither of them knew it yet, but the thread that had tied them together for so long was about to snap. That Tessa's relationship with Damien bloomed quickly, but it lacked the subtlety Eliza had hoped for. Within weeks, they were seen hand in hand at the weekend market, sharing coffee at the corner cafe, laughing in a way that pierced Eliza's heart more than she cared to admit. Tessa didn't hide the romance. If anything, she flaunted it. Her social media brimmed with photos of flowers Damien had sent her, captions that hinted at intimate moments, and cryptic messages about finding something real. Eliza watched it all unfold in silence. She never liked to be the center of attention, but now, being invisible felt unbearable. That Tessa's victory wasn't just about love, it was about winning. For years, she had basked in being the louder, more magnetic friend. Damien became another mark in her streak, proof that she could have whatever Eliza wanted without even trying. What Tessa didn't know was that Damien's interest in her wasn't as unwavering as she believed. In quieter moments, when the public I wasn't watching, he reached out to Eliza. Texts that started innocently grew into long conversations. He complimented her mind, her calm nature, her quiet strength. Eliza, torn between anger and yearning, responded at first out of curiosity. But soon, those exchanges became her secret addiction. They met in secret, once at the back of the library, once during a late-night walk, and another time in the parking lot behind his office. Nothing physical happened, but emotions stirred. Damien never promised anything, but his words planted seeds of doubt in Eliza's mind. Was he truly with Tessa, or was he being pulled in two directions? Either way, Eliza started to believe she had a chance. That belief turned into obsession. She told no one. She erased the messages. She replayed his compliments like a song stuck on repeat. Damien became less of a person and more of a symbol, something that proved she was worthy, that she wasn't second best. Tessa, oblivious to the secret connection, grew increasingly possessive. She started noticing little things, Damien checking his phone and smiling, his interest in events she didn't mention, and most of all, his reluctance to talk about the future. At first, she dismissed it as paranoia, but unease began to fester. She asked questions he dodged. She went through his phone when he was asleep, but found nothing conclusive. Still, her instincts told her something wasn't right. She began dropping subtle hints in her conversations with Eliza, fishing for information, pretending everything was fine while watching for signs of betrayal. One evening, Tessa found a note in Damien's jacket pocket. It wasn't overtly romantic, but it was unmistakably personal. The handwriting was Eliza's. It referenced a moment only someone close would know. Tessa froze. Her chest tightened. All the suspicion she had buried surfaced in an instant. She didn't confront Damien. She didn't ask Eliza. Instead, she stewed in silence, her mind spinning dark scenarios. She started tracking Damien's movements, saving screenshots of his online activity, analyzing patterns in Eliza's behavior. Her trust, once easily given, dissolved into something toxic. Eliza sensed the shift, but misread it. She thought Tessa's unease meant the relationship was crumbling. She began to fantasize about what would happen if Tessa was out of the picture. Not dead, at first. Just gone. Moved away. Left town. Anything that would leave Damien open. But as her thoughts spiraled, so did her bitterness. She started journaling less and thinking more. Planning. She walked the trails behind her house alone more often. She watched true crime documentaries late into the night. And every time Tessa posted another happy photo, Eliza's smile grew a little colder. Whatever thread had once tied them together was no longer fraying. It was hanging by a single strand, pulled taut by resentment, lies, and the man who unknowingly lit the match between them. On a breezy Sunday afternoon in early October, Tessa vanished. Her car was found later that evening, abandoned near the entrance of Fox Hill Trails, a wooded area popular with hikers, but isolated enough to feel uneasy once the sun dipped below the trees. The driver's side door was unlocked, and her phone sat untouched on the passenger seat. There were no signs of a struggle, just silence stretching into the dense forest. By morning, the town was buzzing with whispers and worry. Tessa never missed appointments, never ignored texts, and certainly never disappeared without a trace. When she failed to show up for work and stopped responding to calls, her coworkers alerted the police. Damien was contacted first. He claimed they had argued earlier in the week, but said she hadn't mentioned going to the trails. Eliza, when questioned, claimed she hadn't seen Tessa in days. She appeared concerned but strangely composed, offering to join the search teams without hesitation. Many in town found it admirable. A few found it unsettling. Volunteers combed through the woods with flashlights and search dogs. The weather remained cool and clear, but each day without answers drained the optimism from the group. Flyers were stapled to lampposts. News stations picked up the story, and reporters began circling the community. Eliza joined the search daily, carefully calculating her expressions, never too emotional, never too cold. Her presence was constant, yet her eyes betrayed a certain detachment that a few began to notice. As the search stretched into its fifth day, a jogger veered off a side path and caught a strange scent drifting through the brush. A few feet off the trail, hidden beneath a tangle of pine branches and disturbed earth, they found what no one wanted to believe. Tessa's body had been hastily buried, her face bruised, her neck bruised with signs of strangulation. The discovery broke the town's heart. A beautiful life ended in violence, a friend, daughter, and business owner stolen away. Police secured the scene and began collecting evidence. Near the grave, partially buried in the mud, was a bracelet. It was cracked in two, but the inscription on the inside was clear: "To Eliza, forever bonded." It had been a birthday gift from Tessa during high school, a symbol of their friendship. Now, it lay in the soil beside her body, drenched in mud and implication. Eliza was brought in for further questioning. She didn't cry. She didn't ask for a lawyer. She simply answered each question with calm precision. She admitted she and Tessa had grown distant but denied any recent contact. When shown the bracelet, she claimed she hadn't worn it in years and had no idea how it got there. Investigators weren't satisfied. Her alibi was that she had been home the entire night of the disappearance, watching a streaming series and scrolling on her phone. Her browsing history supported the claim. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's security camera also showed no sign of her leaving. It was a solid defense, but it felt too clean. As detectives dug deeper, they found more troubling signs. Eliza's hiking boots, found in her closet, had traces of soil consistent with Fox Hill Trails. A forensic match. Her internet history revealed late-night searches that suggested something far darker than heartbreak. How long before a body is found in woods? How to remove fingerprints from gloves? Can phone GPS be faked? The town, once so certain of Eliza's character, grew divided. Some still saw her as the grieving friend doing everything she could to help. Others saw something colder, an almost mechanical detachment, a strategic presence, and a quiet mind capable of terrifying things. As the police prepared to make an arrest, the community braced for what they thought would be the final chapter. But what they didn't know was that the story was about to twist again, in a way none of them expected. Eliza was arrested quietly, with no dramatic scene. Police came to her house early in the morning, while dew still clung to the windows and the town was just beginning to stir. She didn't resist, didn't shout, didn't ask why. She simply nodded, changed her clothes, and walked out with them. The news spread within hours. Headlines labeled her the jealous best friend turned killer. People who once waved at her on the street now recoiled. Some called it inevitable. Others said it had to be a mistake. But the evidence was strong, and public opinion tilted fast. The station, Eliza remained calm. She denied everything, but offered no explanation for the inconsistencies. She said she had no reason to harm Tessa and insisted she hadn't been to the trails in months. But the evidence told a different story. Her boots had soil that matched the forest floor near the burial site. Her phone had suspicious gaps in activity during the window when Tessa disappeared. And the bracelet, an item so deeply personal, placed her undeniably close to the crime. Yet, something didn't sit right with the lead investigator. The way the crime was committed seemed personal, yes, but also disorganized. The grave was shallow. The murder, according to the medical examiner, had signs of a struggle. Defensive wounds. The scene didn't match Eliza's composed nature. It felt frantic, rushed, more like a crime of impulse than one of calculation. They decided to dig deeper. Then came the breakthrough. A neighbor a few doors down from Eliza had installed a new dashcam on their car. Reviewing footage from the night of Tessa's disappearance, investigators spotted a shadowy figure leaving Eliza's house around 11:30 p.m. It wasn't Eliza. The frame caught just enough detail to show it was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, carrying something slung across his back. Police enhanced the footage and traced the figure back to Damien. When confronted, Damien at first denied everything. He claimed he and Eliza had barely spoken since he started dating Tessa. But confronted with the video, he broke. He admitted to seeing Eliza secretly. Their relationship had resumed weeks before Tessa's death, filled with tension and late-night meetings. According to Damien, Eliza had become obsessed, demanding he end things with Tessa. He claimed he tried to distance himself, but she had threatened to expose everything. In his version, Tessa found out and confronted him. They fought. She stormed off. He said he followed her to calm her down. When asked why he went to Eliza's that night, he hesitated. Then he confessed. Eliza had asked him to help her cover something up. She told him Tessa was dead and begged for help hiding the body. At first, he said he refused. But then, fear and guilt overtook him. He claimed he drove her to the trail and helped bury the body. He insisted he had no part in the murder itself. Faced with this, Eliza changed her story. She agreed to speak in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her version was different and darker. She admitted she had lured Tessa to the trails that night under the pretense of talking things out. Tessa came, suspicious but curious. Eliza confronted her, emotions boiling over. When Tessa refused to walk away from Damien, the argument turned physical. Eliza said it wasn't planned. But when Tessa fell and hit her head, something snapped. She finished what the fall started. Eliza then called Damien hysterical. He came not to help, but to protect himself. They both knew if the truth came out, everything would unravel. He brought a shovel. They buried the body together. She swore she had never meant to kill her best friend. But the facts painted a colder picture. Damien was charged as an accessory after the fact. Eliza faced charges of second-degree murder. The trial was set, and the town waited, sickened by the unraveling of a friendship that had once seemed unbreakable. The trial began on a gray winter morning, with news vans lining the courthouse steps and a crowd gathering behind yellow barricades. Inside, the courtroom was tense. Faces once filled with trust now carried suspicion. Eliza sat quietly at the defense table, her expression unreadable. Damien sat further back, separated by attorneys and charges of his own. The two no longer looked at each other. The bond that had once united them in secrecy had shattered the moment survival took priority over loyalty. Prosecutors laid out the evidence with precision. They walked the jury through the history of the friendship, the love triangle, and the growing tension that led to Tessa's death. They presented the soil on Eliza's boots, the search history, the hidden phone found in her attic used to send anonymous threats to Tessa. They detailed the bracelet found beside the body, a symbol of their bond turned into a silent witness. Every piece painted Eliza as a woman driven by jealousy, betrayal, and obsession, but Eliza's defense team didn't claim she was innocent. They pivoted to motive and impulse. They argued that years of emotional manipulation from Tessa had finally broken her. They described how Damien had played both women, fueling conflict while pretending to be a victim. They painted Tessa not as a villain, but as someone who had unknowingly stepped into a trap set by two people who needed her gone for their own reasons. Eliza's team emphasized the lack of premeditation. No weapon, no written plan, no attempt to flee. Just panic, they argued. A moment of madness that Damien's testimony was the most anticipated. Under oath, he admitted to hiding his relationships with both women. He confirmed he helped bury the body. But when pressed on whether he knew about the plan in advance, he denied it. He said Eliza called him after the murder, frantic and crying, and he acted out of fear and guilt. The prosecution challenged him, asking why he had brought a shovel, why he had lied for weeks, and why his prints were found on Tessa's car door. He stumbled, contradicted himself, and failed to convince the jury of his innocence. In a dramatic twist, prosecutors introduced a letter found in Damien's desk drawer, written weeks before Tessa's death. In it, he described feeling trapped between two women who both think they own me. He wrote about wanting to escape the town, about fearing what Eliza might do if he stayed with Tessa. It wasn't a confession, but it hinted at foreknowledge and fear, enough to sway the jury's view of his role. After 6 days of testimony and 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Eliza was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Damien was convicted of being an accessory to murder and received 20 years, with the possibility of parole after 12. Neither reacted outwardly as the sentences were read. Eliza kept her gaze on the floor. Damien stared straight ahead, unmoved. The town of Woodpine struggled to move on. The boutique Tessa once owned closed permanently, its windows boarded up, flowers withering in front of the door. The animal clinic where Eliza worked hired new staff, quietly removing her name from their website. People stopped mentioning their names in casual conversation, but their story hung in the air like a ghost. Behind bars, Eliza rarely spoke. She declined interviews, refused visitors, and never again mentioned Tessa or Damien. She spent her days working in the prison library, silent, withdrawn. Damien tried to appeal his conviction twice, both times denied. Their lives, once entwined by friendship and desire, ended in isolation and infamy.